I've decided to come out of hibernation specifically to do a video on this interesting topic. There's been a lot of discussion on social media lately, primarily on the Twitter sphere, that details the following topic. The summarization of it is all art is political. Now, there's a lot of arguments surrounding it, a lot of ways to approach it, but it can be summarized pretty readily, as far as I'm concerned. And we'll get into this, and it's aggravating for me. I'm just gonna be honest, all right? Like, I'm not a person who usually gets upset about stuff, but this particular thing has been really, really aggravating as far as, like, hearing people say some of the stupidest shit you've ever heard and try and pass it off as, like, pseudo-intellectual garbage. See, that's my campus, all right? Like, I'm a psychologist. I know what fucking pseudoscientific garbage is, alright? Leave us alone. So, what does this surround? Well, there's a lot of factors. Here's what we're gonna start with. The most recent set of discussions started with the following argument. Saying everything is political is the only way to turn around the idea that a piece of art can somehow be void of any real-world applying message at all, which is completely nonsense unless it was made by a robot. Whether you like it or not, all art is about something. Now, that's not inherently something disagreeable, the notion that all art is about something, but they don't hold true to that. They have to say that, no, all art is political. I can get into the hows and whys beyond that, but they have a follow-up. They're very condescending with this, and they decided to make a meme, alright? It's the Patrick with his driver's license, Man Ray wallet scene, alright? So, he's saying art is a result of human expression. Yup. And that human expression encompasses all manner of human beliefs, morals, ethics, etc. Yep, politics also encompasses all these ideas. That makes sense to me. Therefore, creating art is a political act. Lamau, sometimes the curtains are just blue. This is what I mean when talking about these things being inherently condescending. So, not only is this completely different from where they originally started, but it just seems asinine, Well, here's the thing. You can say that's a syllogism, alright? Alright, for syllogism, all dogs are pets. All cats are pets. Therefore, cats are dogs. They don't really see the stupidity in this, as far as, like, that particular syllogism. And if you're looking at, sort of my own take on some of this, alright? It's... you are human. Yes. Humans get upset. Yes. Murderers also get upset. Makes sense to me. So you are a murderer. And you can see how the parallels kind of draw into this. Now, there's a lot of people who had expanded upon it, but they come to their defense and they do other things. But one that I've seen personally is and this is what kind of kickstarted my involvement in this particular discussion, folks really think that something being political means it has to be trying to express something political, have the real brain rot. I don't know if that sentence structure is, I don't know, something's off about it. Political means so much more than it tries to make you believe in ideology. And that last statement is correct, but they are still using it in such wide swaths that it's not inherently something I would say I can agree to, and here's the reason why I disagree inherently with all art is political, alright? Political is inherently, it's an adjective, alright? Something is political. Like, political isn't a thing, it's a descriptor. And what would we use those for? We use them to help distinguish things, If you have a steak, and then you have an apple, both of them are red, but one is meat, one is a fruit. You can use those as descriptors for it. You could say anything like, oh, I want to have, when we bring it to this, I want to watch a movie that is a comedy, or I want to watch a movie that is a thriller. I want to watch a cartoon. I want to watch live action. These things all help you understand. This is because even though End of Evangelion is a movie, and Elmo Goes to Grouchland is a movie, they're very, very different movies, and you can help distinguish them with these descriptors. One is animated, one is puppets, one is for children, one is not. One is made in America, one is made in Japan. Notice you can help distinguish. This is how we identify things. And yet, here's something that I'd want you to consider. Let us say they are correct. I don't think they're correct, but let's give them an olive branch and say that all things are political. What use is it now that everything is political per what you have said? Well, to be frank, it's of no use. Every single thing being political now means that Caillou is in the same branch of political as Cannibal Holocaust, or Bowling for Columbine, or House of Cards, anything. It's so asinine to put everything in that, now that we say that everything is political. I mean, I said it before, do you really think that Scooby-Doo should be in the same genre as West Wing? It shouldn't be. Now, some people say that's reductive, because that might not be what they mean, but I'm being serious. If you think that there's, political intent behind something like Dragon Tales or Little Einsteins or something, there isn't. They're children's entertainment. There's no message beyond, here's something educational. Here's something to teach your kids to behave well. Beyond that, there's nothing. There's fucking nothing. So when they say that that is political, it's nonsense. And then I would say to them, we should use political in regards to art as something that is a useful descriptor. Because as it stands right now, you are saying everything is political, and that isn't helpful. And I even mentioned it too, if we're talking about even outside of art. Imagine, maybe you've had this in your own life, that you're having a discussion with your family at dinner. Maybe it's Thanksgiving, because that's normally when people have, dinner with their families. And they might say, hey, since we're all together and we're having a nice chat, let's not talk about anything political, please. Well, then I would beseech to you this. What is something we can talk about if everything is political? No, everything is political. I just have to shut my fucking mouth. And they can kind of expand on this in their own ways. It's actually kind of hilarious how much they want to backtrack in conversations like this. So I would say something like this. And so, no joke, rather than admitting that House of Cards and Scooby-Doo are very different, they'll say stuff like this. Scooby-Doo is about a group of teens traveling around America during a depression, unmasking greedy property owners preying on local superstitions to further grow their wealth at the expense of their neighbors. Scooby-Doo is 100% political, dude. And here's my thing, alright? If you think me as a child, the audience who is inherently meant to, consume this art, is gonna have that as a takeaway, I think you're what's the word? Retarded? Yeah, that's the word. And so I respond. I'm like, if both are political now, they are similar. And I said, with House of Cards comparison, Kevin Spacey in House of Cards being a slimy politician is now just as political as a talking cartoon dog running through the same hallway as a gag in order to catch costumed crooks. And I asked them, how useful is it to have them be under the same term? Well, that's the thing. If they're, what is Scooby-Doo like as far as media? Well, it's political. Okay, what is House of Cards like as media? Well, it's political. Notice how, if you use that term to describe them, I haven't given you any information that's useful. If you say one is a cartoon, then I'm like, oh, okay. And not to be broad strokes, but generally speaking, cartoons are more intended for children, whereas live action, generally, we'll say, is meant for adults. Not that you can't have exceptions, Wiggles for children and Family Guy for adults, but generally speaking, you'll know what you're getting into, at least for that. Especially if you're someone who wants to consume media as part of entertainment. Your time is precious, and you're not going to want to watch something you don't want to watch. If someone doesn't like anime and you tell them it's a cartoon, then it's like, okay, maybe I can rule that out as far as a thing I'm interested in. But you wouldn't do that. What it comes down to for this is then they push back for this, and they always fucking push back as, you mentioned Tetris, and they're like, well, Tetris was made in order to make money, which is under a capitalist system, which makes it inherently political, among other things. Another argument, nobody says all art has to be political in equal amounts. That is an utter fallacy. House of Cards is a political thriller for adults. Politics is a part of the capital T text. Scooby-Doo is a gag cartoon for kids. The politics exists only in the subtext. And I mention this. I basically say, well, here's the thing. Let's say if you're talking about different degrees of politics, is it? And I basically say, well, it can go down to 0 then. If House of Cards is way up there, and something like Scooby-Doo is very low, I'd say Scooby-Doo is 0. Scooby-Doo never said, oh damn you capitalists, and damn the U.S. government for them allowing these cronies to invade and take over our systems. Like, they don't do that, man. And here's the thing. If I am a kid, the main audience, and I watch it and I don't take it away from that, and you, as an adult who are obsessed with fucking politics, takes it away from that, that means that you like politics and the show doesn't have it. You are adding it. You say subtext like it's some fucking grand mystery to be revealed when no one else sees it that way. And then they mention this, and I said, if it can be 0, that means you can have things that are not political. Even if it's on the political scale and it's 0, that means it's not. Alright? It's off the fucking scale because it's not political. Look at something like How It's Made. How is something like How It's Made political? It's like, oh man, I figured out how popsicle works. Now I know who to vote for. Now I know that war is bad, guys. Yeah, How It's Made was the friends we made along the way. Vote Democrat. Fuck me, dude. And then they push back, as they do, and I thought I was giving them a gimme, something like, I would agree that everything is on the scale of politicalness, but that it can be as low as 0 sometimes. And they wouldn't take that. And they said, having 0 is inherently impossible, even if you actively try to remove politics from your art. When you define as not being political relies entirely on your own idea of politics. It is shaped by the politics of your environment. So I want you to understand the mindset of these people. When you actively, as an artist, all right, you have complete autonomy over what you make, barring very specific circumstances of like duress, if you're under contract, working for a corporation, whatever. But as an artist, generally, you have the creative freedom to make whatever you want. And you explicitly go out of your way to say, I am not making a political piece. Or even, and here's something very special. What if it just doesn't cross your mind? What if you're just making a little doodle, right? Just making a little drawing, and I didn't even think, oh, this is not political. I'm just like, no, it's just, I might paint a picture of a cloud. This guy's like, whoa there, friend, you might have to slow down, because it's political. And, well, keeping in line with this, even if you as an artist say, I'm not making something political, they're saying, no, it's impossible. I, a random fucking Twitter user, are telling you, the artist, that you are not allowed to make non-political art. And they say themselves, when I call them out on this, I'm like, you sound like you're trying to restrict or police what I say. And they say there's nothing restrictive about it. It's a fact of creation. The politics you're raised in is going to dictate your way of thinking, whether you want it to or not. Choosing to not engage in politics when using a public platform is in itself a political act. Here's the thing. You say like a public platform, like, what do you mean a public platform? And I mention this because I'm like, if it's possible for art to not be political, then you can't say all art is political. If I have a kid and he makes fucking finger paint, it's not that him showing it to me so I can put it on my fucking fridge isn't a public platform. Do you understand? If someone makes a silly cartoon, it's not inherently political. If I just make an action flick, it's not inherently political. Like, you can interpret politics from stuff if you wish. I'm not going to stop you, but you're forcing your perceptions of art onto other people. You are forcing, if you were to have your way, that is, you are telling artists they are not allowed to do what they want to do because of your position on this. Do you understand how absolutely ass backwards this is? Listen to, we'll say, the way that they would present it like this, all right? So, This is someone else defending Scooby-Doo as being political. The gang being a bunch of rabble-rousing teens discovering how adults love to take advantage of superstitions to personally profit, all being in a show that was created and aired at the peak of the Vietnam War by an Italian immigrant, an ex-army vet, and someone who grew up during the Great Depression, really activates those almonds. While the show may not have directly commented on these aspects, it's a critical part of the show's DNA during creation that cannot be ignored unless you just insist on turning your brain off. Politics influence every part of creation, whether you or the creator realize it or not. Well, this comes back to the crux I'm going to say is, if the creation of art is political, what would be unique about it? You could look at a relatively painless sort of creation, Big Mama's House. Maybe that's a pretty simple movie. What's something even simpler? How about Groundhog's Day? Or what about Bob? Or Tommy Boy? Like I said, there's a million different movies that don't seem to have like a bent against any of these things, or at the very least, they seem to have very untroubled productions. It's not like, oh, this was funded by the U.S. military. Because that's something else. What is the politics of Ferris Bueller's Day Off? That was funded by the Department of Defense. Alright? You could say, since there's a political body funding it, you could say the production was political. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but does that make the movie political? Alright? If I just take out a little pen, I just draw a picture of a little bunny, but it's a pen that I got from, like, my senator or something, does that make that a political bunny? A political notepad? A political drawing, little doodle that's inherent to discussing, the collapse of society? What the fuck are you on about? And here's the thing. I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to describe this for it on the basis that it's not something that can make it unique. Everything is political. Oh, okay, well, why was this show unique? What makes this show good? Well, it was political just like every other show. That's what makes it good, and that's what lets you know that this show is different from that show. This show is different from that show because they're the same. Because they're both political. I don't know what would be the thing that can help with this. I even mentioned it with, like, fruit. I use fruit as an example, I'm like, I just go up to, fruit stand, Mill Street or something, I'd like some edible fruit, please. Like, okay, well, these are all edible. What kind do you want? I'm like, oh, the edible kind. It's right there. They hold up like a banana or something like this one. I'm like, no, read my lips. Edible fruit, not that kind. And like, well, here's the thing. Do you see the issue with using a word that applies to all things to make a distinction? And, well, what would be the purpose of something like that? And here's the thing. We mentioned, not me personally, someone else mentioned, well, why does it have to be political? Political is just one aspect. What about philosophical? What about religious? You can look at things in a religious light. And then they mention this. They discount it. They're like, looking at Scooby-Doo through a religious lens is pointless, considering it's not trying to sell you a deity to worship. Scooby-Doo is blatant satire of superstition exploitation. You don't notice it until you actually understand what political means, which is absolutely hilarious, because I looked up what political means, and, well, we've got two definitions. According to Wikipedia, politics, specifically, is the set of activities that are associated with the governance of a country, state, or area. It involves making decisions that apply to groups of members and achieving and exercising positions of governance, organized control over a human community. Politics is a multifaceted word, but then if we just look at the regular Google one, which I don't know their exact source on this, but look it up. Political is an adjective relating to the government or the public affairs of a country, and then another iteration of it is relating to the ideas or strategies of a particular party or group in politics. I want you to understand the specifics of this. Relating to the government or the public affairs of a country. Alright? So, when I watch Scooby-Doo, and it's a dog, and he takes the mask off of a man pretending to be an evil robot, and then he's like, oh man, I wanted the hidden pirate treasure, but I wanted everyone to leave, so I was a robot ghost, and then they left, so I got rich. In what way does me watching that inform me or help me participate in the way that my government runs? It's just a sincere question. And then we can tie this into it. Well, here's the religious example. If you think of it this way, you could look at it as just, since we're going on stretches here, you could look at it as someone discussing the merits of atheism, all right? You have a bunch of young, bright kids, detectives, or doing detective work, arguably, and they find these supernatural events going on. And then they unmask these people, discover, hey, there's nothing supernatural going on. It all has a scientific explanation. And in addition to that, you find the person behind these seemingly supernatural things was a con man. To be honest, usually it's just an old man who is trying to profit off of the superstitions of others. And you could, I don't think I have to explain that further, but for those of you in the back, that could be seen as like a priest. Priest says, hey everyone, God's real. You go to hell unless you come to church, give me money. And then they live off of that. And so just with me doing that little tiny stretch there, I am able to articulate that Scooby-Doo is atheist propaganda. All right? It is encouraging you to look at the church and Christianity and just religion in general in a critical light so that you can unmask the con men that are people who profit off of the belief and faith of those who they preach to. And here's the thing. That's entirely separate from that. They deny that that is a valid viewpoint, but they accept that politics is one. I mentioned it for Tetris and Mario and, well, any other number of things. I'm like, what would the politics be of any of these things? And here's the thing, even if you can make a stretch to do it, that's not what the creator intended. So then when you tell me, no, the creator's intent is not valid in regards to determining this, well, then it comes down to the day of like, okay, so my personal interpretation is not a factor in this. The creator's intent when making it is not a factor in this. And every single aspect of its creation, regardless of what they wanted to do, how I view it, or literally anything else in the world, doesn't factor into whether it's political or not, then it's not a useful fucking description. It's not. In the same way that saying fruit is edible is not a useful description because they're all fucking edible. If I want an edible fruit, I just eat a fruit. It's just part of it. It's inherent. It's to its core, right? So, what are you providing to the conversation when you say, "Oh, this is political"? Like, okay, let's just say I accept it. I don't accept it, but let's say I do. And I'm like, and? Because here's the thing: we operate under two sort of conclusions with this. All right. Conclusion number one. I'm correct, and not everything is political. So when you compare the two, we can compare two bodies of work. House of Cards is about Kevin Spacey playing a politician, and he does political chess and schemes and manipulations, as you would expect a sort of political thriller to do, right? Then you have K-Pax, which is a drama, a little bit of a comedy. I'm just going to call it a early 2000s sci-fi drama where Kevin Spacey plays a man who believes he's an alien. So they take him to the psych ward, and then him and Jeff Bridges, they kind of just argue back and forth about whether or not he's an alien for an hour and a half. So here's the thing. One of them involves a politician acting in the government, and the other one does not. And then if I am approached and someone says, oh, well, which of these what's the difference between these two movies? I have the option of either watching season 1 of House of Cards or K-Pax. Can you give me a word that helps describe only one of these things? Well, it stars Kevin Spacey. No, they both star Kevin Spacey. Be more specific. Live action. No. Both of them are live action. You need to be more specific. Oh, here's the kicker. That magic fucking word. One of them is political. The other one is not. And now they have information. They're like, oh, okay, so this one's going to involve, people going to government buildings. It's going to involve them signing and making declarations and, like, moving people around and, kind of manipulating shit, all right? And then the other one's like, okay, well, I'm going to be, it's not political. I said it's a drama, involves a psych ward. So it's going to involve people talking to each other. Might be more of a character study, since we're talking about how the social interactions of people. Notice how very, very useful both of these things are. in regards to just talking. This is just how you determine things, whether or not you want to watch something. And you want to know what comes down to? This is the thing I've been kind of tiptoeing around. It's not something I want to attribute to people, but I'm going to speculate on it because it's helpful for this conversation. What is the motive behind this? Because I even said, of what use is it to describe everything as political? Now we have one less way to distinguish these things. Now someone's like, what do you want to watch? Like, oh, I want to watch something political. Like, oh, okay, so you want to watch Berenstain Bears? No. JJ the Jet Plane? No. Power Rangers? No. Notice all these things are something that aren't actually described as political, but everything's political now. Understand the hole that we're in. But why would they do this? You gotta wonder why this conversation even started. It can't just be for the sake of just a discussion. They're much too fervent for it. I'm just gonna be honest. They seem very invested in this. Like, they get upset. I'm getting upset, but that's because I'm dealing with fucking morons. Hence, because that was the name of this channel, for those of you who don't know. The name, Cerebral Cesarean, deals with the notion that I'm dealing with people whose brains are fucking missing. Hence, their cerebral items have been removed via C-section. That aside, though, I think it comes down to them defending media that they like, and they need an out. So what do I mean? Well, you can look at all sorts of things, I'm not going to tie directly into this, but you look at art as in the one they're looking at. All right, they're looking at art where maybe it's a bit more political. Maybe it's critical of conservatives. Maybe they have more LGBT representation. Maybe it's about groups and racism and these other things. You could have a game where you're playing as like lesbians and it's about, oh man, these straight white men are bad. Among other things, Life is Strange 2 literally ends with you tearing down Trump's border wall. Like, not literally, but it might as well be. And then it comes down to this. You have all these things. They're not inherently bad, but it comes down to people saying, I do not want to play these things because they're political. I play games, or I watch movies, or I do whatever for escapism. And I think that's an important distinction to make for this, because it's like, well, I go on Twitter, and I watch the news, and I talk with friends, and all of them talk politics all the time. I turn on the TV, and it's CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and all of it is how the opposing political party is bad. Not much about my local community, not much about what's good in the world. It's all I just hear about is politics. Then I go to my friends, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I unfriended someone on Facebook because they didn't agree with me about adding a woman to to the Ghostbusters, or they didn't like that they changed a character to be a gay person in the new season of a show." And so I hear about it then. And then I go to my games. And then I see a game and I'm just trying to play something nice. And then they're like, you know who's the worst? You specifically. You, because of the gender you didn't choose and the race you didn't choose and the sexual orientation that you didn't choose. All those things just make you an inherently bad person. And then I'm like, okay, I have an idea. I don't really like these things that tie directly into my real life. These very stressful kind of things. Maybe I just want to play something that's not political. It could be anything, Like, I play a lot of Risk of Rain 2. That's not really that political at all. There's not really much of a story. Maybe I want to play Tetris. That's not political. Maybe some Mario. Also not political. You could look at something like Neo 2, which is even something as closely related as Neo 2 when you are fighting on behalf of Japanese warlords in the Sengoku Jidai period, which I'd say is inherently a political topic. It's not a game I would say is political, because not at one point do they try and tie it into some sense of modern morality or something along the lines of like preaching the way that you ought to operate. And I guess that's the distinction I would want to make here is when you're discussing these things, they want to kind of broaden this. If I'm critical of a game that I specifically say I don't like this game because it's too political. It's very political in a way that I do not enjoy, So I will choose not to play it, and I will be critical of it. Well, what's your counter to that? You can't deny that something is political, because if you want to say, no, LGBT representation isn't political, it'll come down to, oh, so I'm LGBT and I'm being oppressed by the government, and you're saying that, my life and my existence and my rights aren't political. They can't do that because they're trying to make a statement. They're trying to be political, so they can't do that as an option to say, no, it isn't. So then what's the step? If you have to counter criticism of a product that you are morally obligated to defend this thing. So what's your only option? I know. Everything is political. Well, how do you figure? Well, everything when it comes to making art is a political act. You're saying something. You're making a statement that's involved with the human condition and life and how you interact with others. That makes it inherently political, because it's this interaction with others, and you're in this environment that is shaped and molded by politics, because we live in a society that uses politics to shape itself. So, therefore, everything is political. And now, you can't criticize Life is Strange 2 among the other games that I have here, the other movies that I have here, like literally anything. You can't criticize it for being political, because A, if you say that it is bad because it's political, well, now you dislike things that you like, so you look stupid. Or if you try and say, no, this is political, but this one isn't, you look like a hypocrite. So, that is it. Either you can't criticize my game, or if you criticize one for being political and the other one for not, then you're being inconsistent. And well, that's why they want to do that. They want to deflect any criticism of their stuff away by making people who talk about it look like hypocrites. And I guess that's sort of the crux of this here, is it's hard for them to defend these games on their own merits, as far as I'm concerned. And it's not just for games, it can apply to movies or film or books, among other things. You look at this stuff and it becomes down to, well, why didn't this property succeed? It's like, well, because the people who didn't buy it, they're hate mongers, they're fear mongers, they're spreading lies by saying that these things are political. They just want everyone who's disagreeing with them to look dumb, to look inconsistent, to be able to effectively defend what they're doing here. And that's why they will never, ever give up on it. And here's the thing that I want to come across here for this. When I say that I'm against the idea that all art is political, I'm not saying art cannot be political, or that things involved with its production can't be political. I'm saying that you can be yes or no. It can be a scale, all right? Something like House of Cards, for example, I would say is more political than something like Little Bush, which is just a parody about politicians and not inherently political by its nature, among other things. And the thing you understand, too, is when it comes to something being political, I would particularly say is you can make an easy distinction. Let's take a look at an old school meme, Badgers by Weeble. Badger, that one. What's the politics behind that one? And this has become a meme lately of, because of this, people have been posting, like, what's the politics behind this? And just showing, like, absolutely absurd, like, nonsensical garbage. And none of them have an answer for it. They just act pretentious, and they're like, oh, they keep saying this like it means anything. Huh? I'm like, yeah, it means something. Its value is specifically because you don't have an answer for it, and it shows you how vapid your argument is. But here's the thing. You look at Badgers, and it's like, well, there's not really anything political about it. Couldn't identify a thing. Maybe you can say, oh, it's made by a British guy, and like British is like a colonial empire, and that's fucking sure. Stretch yourself as much as you want. But let's take a look at a different one. You have Save the Badgers, which is also made by Weeble many years later, and it was specifically a video to promote a petition to stop the culling of badgers by the British government. Now, here's the thing. One video, I don't necessarily know the inspiration behind the original Badgers, but presumably it was just made to be a funny, silly internet video. And then the other one was made explicitly to shape policy. He made the video to promote a petition to be sent to the government to stop them from enacting a cull. You were talking about one where it has real-world actual effects on fucking people, and the other one is a stupid fucking meme from over a decade ago. And then I say that they aren't both political. And they lose their shit. And here's the thing, too. You gotta understand that some people just make art for its own sake. The one I'm looking at is one that I saw from another person, another account on Twitter, and they basically said, like, what's the political meaning behind finger paint made by a toddler? You can't say, oh man, it was, made to be critical of X, Y, Z. Like, so what? What does a toddler have as far as, like, a political intent? And the thing is, they don't. They made it for, there's a few reasons I can think of, but toddlers are simple. Maybe they made it either A, because it's fun, B, because they're bored, C, because they were told to, or maybe they wanted to make it for someone else. Maybe they wanted to show a friend. Maybe they wanted to show their parents so that they could, be like, oh, wow, Dad, I made this for you. Oh, thanks, son. I'm going to put this on the fridge. It's the best art I've ever fucking seen. Right? And it's like, wow, that's good. And here's the thing. There's nothing political about wanting to be proud of your own fucking art. There's nothing political about wanting to make good art or about making people happy. It's not a political act. All right, like, I have a demonstration. All right. I am about to, for the first time ever, attempt to make art without it being political. All right. Now, I have a quote here to say for this. By saying you made art that is void of politics, you signal what you, and to some extent your society, see as political. Okay. So, that is the guidelines. There is impossible for it to be zero, and it is inherently political by me saying it is not political. Alright? I have Microsoft Paint open here. I'm just going to start off. We're just going to go one line at a time. Steady. Steady. Fuck! I drew a single fucking line and it's already political. God fucking damn it. Don't worry, we'll get them next time. We'll get advanced technology in the future someday that will give us the tools that we need to make non-political art. But at the end of the day, all of this just comes down to personal interpretations being forced on other people. I don't mind inherently if someone wants to look at Scooby-Doo and say it's political. They have every right to do that. But I also have the right to say that I don't see it that way. Especially because, by all evidence, it isn't that way. There's even an excerpt that I had found. It's from a book, Sick Little Monkeys, the Unauthorized Ren and Stimpy Story. And it details the production of a pup named Scooby-Doo. And in it, they specifically said that ABC was really looking for a way to appear cutting edge sans the risk, and that they wanted a silly show with no further aspirations than that. And in addition to that, the show was full of self-referential humor and took jabs at the inanity of the original Scooby-Doo. So we have two things here listed specifically in reference to creators of the show. All right, we have source on this. People who are directly involved in the creation of this show pertaining to the earlier discussion with Scooby-Doo have said that not only is it just a silly show and nothing more, they have described the original show as inane, which just means it's silly and stupid. So you're trying to tell me that you're some random fucking Twitter user, all right? Roughly, you're equal to me. I'm another nobody on fucking Twitter. All right? And you're telling me that you override my personal opinion and the views of the creators themselves as stated directly of it being just a silly show. You know more than them. You have more authority than them when it comes to this particular topic. Am I picking up what you're putting down? And here's the thing you gotta understand. Even if you could come up with some convoluted way to say that the productions were just swathed in any of this, if it doesn't come across in the show proper, it's not useful fucking information for people who are trying to consume media. Alright? Like, if the production of the show is bad, alright, and then the movie is good, most people who don't know about it, they're not affected by it. I shouldn't have to be well-versed in the production of a particular piece of media to be able to enjoy it or critique it or talk about it at all. It's relevant information if I'm making a breakdown and a critique and I'm presenting it to you lot. But if I'm just wanting to watch it, like if I just want to sit down on my couch and just watch a fucking film, I shouldn't have to, crack open Wikipedia and read about the production notes. I shouldn't have to hear the director's commentary to understand and appreciate the film. Like, oh, this film sucks. But did you watch the full documentary about how the movie was made and read all the director's notes and listen to me prattle on and on endlessly so that you can't criticize my game about lesbians, politics and Trump bad for 8 fucking hours in a row? Did you not do any of that? No. Oh, of course you didn't enjoy it. Oh, do all that and then it'll be a perfect piece of fucking art. Art should be able to stand on its own. And I shouldn't need someone else's completely vapid interpretation of it to add value to it. And I say this to say that you thinking it's political adds nothing to it if it's political. To link it back to Syndrome, if everything is political, then nothing is. So what's a better word? Well, I've been trying to figure that out, and I've asked them, and I said, look, if everything is political, and I need a word to define why House of Cards is more of something than K-Pax, why don't you give me a new word? Why don't you do something fucking productive for once in your life instead of just trying to deny people their own thoughts and feelings? And here's the thing, you'd think that these people would be more in line with that. You're like, oh, I want people's feelings to be valid, and I want artists to be able to express themselves freely. However, your opinion that this is not political is invalid, and your ability to create non-political art is impossible as an artist. It's not allowed. You can't do it. Per me, some random Twitter user. I'm going to stop you. Me. And it seems... I'm going to say, for lack of a better word, with these specific type of people, it shows their true colors. This isn't a trait that's inherent on the left or Democrats or liberals as a whole, but this specific subset of them, these just whiny, mingy cunts who just spend all their time being unfun on Twitter when we're talking about this shit. Because that's all I want to do. I just want to talk about shit, man. I just want to talk about things that are fun and just have a good time. I'm like, hey, remember that time Godzilla just fucking vomited his atomic breath so hard that he flew backwards? For several miles? That's some fun shit. And then they're like, no, that's political. And then I don't want to have fun anymore. But what's a word that we could use? Well, I would say this. I would use the word propaganda. Now, it's a bit of a strong word, admittedly, but here's what I would say. If you are explicitly trying to tell me that your political position is good and that you as the viewer should share that because of the way that I've presented it, try to make it appealing for you, I would say it's propaganda. And then Scooby-Doo being made while a war was going on, even if the creators had no intention of discussing that during the show, okay, maybe you can say it's political, but I would say Scooby-Doo is not propaganda. BioShock, you could say, is political in that it details with political things. Some topics, in this case, Ayn Rand is brought up, as reference to Andrew Ryan, talking about, we'll say, economic systems, and the politics related to them being brought up as a core theme of the game. The thing is, though, the game doesn't tell you one is better than the other. They don't say, oh, communism is best, or, oh, libertarianism, or laissez-faire economics, or, free market is best. They don't tell you any of that. They just say, oh, these characters believe these things, and here's what those characters do. So when I say BioShock is not political, to be more precise with language, because that's something I would like to do that none of these brain-dead fucking minges ever feel like doing, I am saying BioShock is not necessarily trying to propagandize me into agreeing with the political beliefs of its creative team. That is what I mean. When I am playing something, or watching something, or reading something, and I feel like they're trying to push something like that, I don't like that. You know? When I watch Black Panther 2, and they call the white people colonizers, I don't really feel that good about it. I feel like they're trying to push a specific thing. In this case, you should feel bad because white people enslaved black people in the past. Now, you could ignore a million different issues you have with that, but that is something that I would say is relevant to that movie. That is them, to me, trying to say something that is political in nature. Or at the very least, that character is trying to do it. And that by the fact that the character has such a positive portrayal in the work, they are trying to say that this is a fine, if not the correct position to have. And that's the thing. That what I say is the distinction between that as propaganda. I'm not going to say Black Panther as a whole is a propaganda piece, but it has that. I don't enjoy that as much as, well, you can look at any other sort of action flick. John Wick isn't trying to propagandize me into anything. It's not pro-gun. It's not, anti-crime. It's none of these things. It's just a guy's dog is dead. Let's get some revenge. Simple as that. So, to be precise, I don't enjoy watching your propaganda. Is that clear for you? You may disagree with that term, but tell you what, you guys are fucking able to do these mental gymnastics. You create a word. You create a word that is able to distinguish between something having really extremely to non-existent political influences and something that's directly telling me something. Alright? You look at Bowling for Columbine, that documentary, alright? That's political. That is a political documentary. And in this case, it's specifically pertaining to gun rights, gun legislation as it pertains to the Columbine massacre, among other things. That is explicitly propaganda. It's explicitly political. And I would say that is different from Clifford the Big Red Dog. So you tell me which word helps more. I'll stop using the word political if you give me a new fucking word that's useful to the conversation. For someone who wants to talk so much about all these things and analyze them so much, you're being really obtuse when it comes to actually using better, more precise words on this. And listen, this is going to sound really kind of edgelordy, but it's something that I would say is useful for this. You can come up with words for the 70 plus different kind of genders and sexual identifications, but you can't come up with a single fucking word that is distinct from the word political when we're describing why Tetris is distinct from fucking Life is Strange. That's it. I'm just like, I don't want to play Gone Home. It just doesn't look like my kind of tea. I don't want to play a walking sim about crying lesbians. I'm like, maybe it's good, but you haven't enticed me with that. You haven't made your case. And here's the thing, if you want to keep going with this and keep pushing it, and it's like, it is okay for you to like what you like and interpret things how you interpret things. But you're forcing it onto other people, and that I cannot abide. Thank you all so much for watching. Expect some content in the future. I don't really have a time frame in mind for when I'm going to be making another video, or even what it's going to be about. But it most likely is going to be involving stuff regarding politics, the upcoming election. I'm going to say that's mainly going to be primarily my focus, as well as detailing arguments that I see on social media. Akin to this one, maybe not as heated or memey, but I think it would be interesting to see where it goes if this discussion continues. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.